Hello, this is the Plutonian Podcast. My name's Rue. I'm here to bring the truth to you, that beautiful, ugly truth, whether you want to hear it or not. I plan to piss some people off. Well, I don't plan to piss people off. I'd like to set a whole spiel of facts before you and give you a dissertation on some information, but unfortunately, facts don't really matter to people anymore because so many people have become so emotionally identified with an opinion, their own or somebody else's, or something that's been programmed into them, that it's difficult to reach people once they've already made an emotional identification / bias. However, I'm streaming live on 2 platforms. I have 2 devices going right now. I have a very little tiny microphone in hand, and I have some points to make tonight. I'm just going to call them opinions at this point, but I can make facts for people who are interested in them, or you could go and find them for yourself. If you're not interested in finding facts for yourself, then obviously you're not interested in the truth, because we live in the age of information. And if you cannot find the right information on your own and come to any kind of rational conclusion or logical judgments of your own, then what's the point of having a thing called a brain? Because from what I understand, as far as studying esoteric information, scriptures, esoteric being not readily out in the public, I understand that we have 3 brains, and they are all constantly vying for attention and energy. But these 3 brains kind of surmise, the law of 3, and that is your mental brain, your emotional brain, and your motor instinctual brain, or your sexual brain. And these are all referenced to in ancient Tibetan Buddhism, the Hermetics, the Gnostics, all these ancient cultures and traditions, a lot of them. And if you notice yourself and pay attention to yourself, you'll realize that you do have lots of conflicting feelings based off of how you actually emotionally feel about something, whether it gives you joy or not, pardon me, or whether you've rationally fully had an intellectual identification with something, or based on your survival, which is sex and food and air and all that. So those are the 3 things that really drive us, is those 3 brains. But anyways, my point tonight in this whole entire presentation of the Plutonian Podcast is to present the thesis that government, especially the government in the Western world, moreover, the American government, is a parasite and or is a cancer. I can't decide which, because a parasite will drain its host until it's out of energy, and then it'll find a new host and or use that host's body to replicate itself and produce more of itself. And then a cancerous just a cell that grows and multiplies and multiplies and multiplies uncontrollably. Now, I would say that the American federal government is more like a cancerous parasite, if you will. And if you look at the facts, the evidence, the history of the progress of the American government, just the American government, we're not even going to talk about the American people so much yet. But if you recognize that the American people are subject to the American government, and what the American people actually suffer under is their government. And we're not suffering too bad here, but we are in a system of slavery. it's gotten a hold of me. It's sad because it's financial slavery. It's tax serfdom. And when you have tax serfdom, you are stuck in a socioeconomic status where it's very difficult to rise above your level, your caste level. And this is by design, I would almost argue. It takes a lot to rise above your parents' level of where they were. But the reason why I call the government here a cancer or a parasite is because they feed off of our tax dollars, and they feed off of our energy, and they feed off of our labor, and they feed off of our children, and they feed off of literally everything that we produce as far as goods and commerce. They take and tax and use. So what you got to look at is, what does the government actually produce besides violence and force? It's literally a monopoly on force and violence. The government has no other function. I mean, we can make the argument that the government builds the roads and it I don't know, what does it really though? Does it mean yes, they tax us and they build roads and bridges and the water supply and the sewer systems and all these dirty jobs that people do on their own individually. And also the government has a monopoly on those things. But what government is good at is, especially American imperial, I would like to call it, and this is not a term that I've coined, but American imperialism is exceptional at going to other places, other countries, and forcibly stealing those resources and forcibly pressing its, air quote, liberal democracy, democratic republic onto others countries. And you could even look at the Vietnam War, which is way before I was ever born. But you look into it, and the Gulf of Tonkin event, it actually was an event that was never fully explained, and what got us into the Vietnam War. And it was a war that we lost. One of the wars. We've lost many wars, but your average American doesn't know that. Actually, what's quite impressive is that we lost the war for Antarctica to the Nazis, and that we can't go past, I think it's the 60th parallel. So really, legally, we can't travel down to Antarctica without government permission. And there's a whole treaty of nations that actually have gotten together and said, okay, we're all going to cooperate to keep this treaty alive, which is the Treaty of Antarctica. And I think there's about 13 nations. And what's surprising to me is that all the governments in the world can agree on this Antarctic treaty, and they can agree on the coronavirus, but they can't agree on other things. But I'm going to restate and circle back around to my original point, which is the American government survives off of our taxes. And I think most governments survive off of tax. And what's unfortunate is the government actually doesn't really produce any goods besides weapons and force. And at this point, pharmaceutical vaccines. And what really inspired me to get off my ass and open my mouth and speak is because I hear that in America, and this could just be propaganda by the media, that people that work for the government are going to be going, sorry, I cracked myself up, door to door to check to see if you're informed on vaccination, to encourage vaccinating people. And I feel like this is just the first initial breach of privacy. And when it comes down to it, you got to think. There was actually a president, I think Nixon or Reagan, that said that the last thing you ever want to hear is government on your doorstep saying, we're here from the government and we're here to help. It's quite disturbing, the uptake and the popular opinion surrounding the whole coronavirus charade. And it's very difficult for me to wrap my head around it, how any sane person would want to actually put themselves into what I would like to call a voluntary house arrest or a voluntary lockdown. And what's most disturbing to me is that I have been incarcerated before, and the term lockdown is actually a term that's very popular. Well, not popular, but it's a term they use in prison. So, and not a lot of people are hip to that, and those that aren't should be, I reckon. But I do have some notes here that I've taken, and these are kind of just some general notes, but government is a criminal organization ruled by force against the people. It's true. They do have a monopoly on force. They have the military and they have police officers that are here to enforce those air quote laws. And whatever any politician writes down, pardon me, on a piece of paper can become law. Now, is it a just law? That's up for us to decide, the people. But the fact that there's been no real pushback, organized pushback here in the United States against any of the politicians. And what I'm talking about is tar and feather. Why don't we pull these governors out of their house and tar them up and feather them, hang them from their feet? I'm not calling for any kind of violence or anything like harmful, but sometimes an example needs to be set, and that's what we used to do. And what the American people don't understand is that the governors and the politicians, senators, congressmen, president, anyone who works for the government is under a social contract where they're supposed to represent us, but they don't really represent us. And you can tell because who can actually, normal person, go up and talk to the governor like that, or the mayor, or your county commissioner, or anything like that? You can't. And what's really disturbing is that they live among us. So many people that work for the government live among us. And what you got to understand is that there's a fundamental conflict of interest when people that work for the government are allowed to vote. They're allowed to vote for things that pertain to the government and what the government is going to do. And that is a fundamental conflict of interest. That would be like, well, basically, there's a quote where it's, I think Ben Franklin said, democracy is like two wolves and a sheep voting for dinner. What are you going to do if you're the sheep? And that's a kind of a sad, perfect example, is that most people right now have a herd mentality. And the mainstream media has this role in enlightening us with the dangers and truths of the world. And unfortunately, they've been incentivized to promote fear and propaganda. And that's obvious with the way that they presented us the coronavirus and all those Chinese people falling dead on the ground in the streets and people being ripped out of their home and everything. And what's even more disturbing is the United States did the exact same thing, which was lockdown. And you gotta ask yourself, Who's really content with paying bills till they die? That's another good question. That's the real freedom that we have here is pay taxes and die. Vote. They tell us your vote counts, but it really doesn't. You don't really have any representation here. And the reason why I titled this "Government is a Parasite or a Cancer" is because, well, the government has grown exponentially in power and size and monetary weight, if you can agree with that term, for as long as its inception. And what most people my age, or even most people, fail to acknowledge or realize or look into themselves is that this government was originally a confederacy. Dare I say that word, a confederacy? Now, the other little aspect / side topic that I wanted to add into this is, something spiritual. And I've kind of touched on a little bit of spirituality when I talked about the three brains or three energy systems, the three motors, the three thought centers, because you think with all of these, especially men can really, there's that saying, you're thinking with the wrong head. It means you're lusting and you're not using your mind. Maybe you have some emotions involved, but I've been having some difficulty trying to integrate spirituality in with my life. And when I was younger, before my brain was fully developed, my prefrontal cortex, 25 years old, that's when your brain is actually done developing. So I don't know why in America you're treated like an adult. It is 18. You can go and die for your country, but you can't buy booze or cigarettes now, I don't think, until you're 21 in some states. And it's really quite sad. But I was going in and out of prison. And whenever I got locked up, it was easy for me to focus on spirituality and read and be chaste and intellectual and write and take time to work on myself and exercise and do all those little things to take care of myself. But what I've had a hard time is integrating my spirituality into this real world where all the distractions are. Now, I'm going to add that the monastic life, the monks, the nuns, and the holy people, they go into seclusion and isolation. So it's easy for them to say no to all these sins, these detrimental vices that weigh heavy on our soul and our being. It's easy because they're separated from the world. And that's what I'm trying to point out, is that when I was incarcerated, it was easy for me to be spiritual because I was separated. That's the first thing that I go to, is my creator, my inner being, my higher self, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it. I don't like really putting labels. And I haven't chosen a specific deity. I do have role models, but I have had a hard time also integrating spirituality into these podcasts. And I want to make more videos on, on astrology. And, it's just very difficult because so many people are doing astrology videos, but I want to do astrology videos that are like nobody else. I don't want to be an astrologer that's like nobody else. And I'm obviously outspoken, so I feel like, given my nature and the platform of YouTube, Facebook, and social media and all that, I'm going to speak out against the government and their use of force, but I want to do it in a peaceful way, and I want to do it in a spiritual way. And it's real that governors and mayors and senators and congressmen, they weren't able to hide in the past. And if they did something, the people would know about it. They would feel it. But there's such a gross misrepresentation of this social contract where we believe that it's a government of, by, and for the people. Where if these were normal people, they'd be down in the trenches with us. They wouldn't have a career in government. So we'd be able to hold them accountable. Now, what you got to think of is in a tribal setting, indigenous tribe, Viking tribe, any kind of tribe, before we became, air quotes, civilized and socialized, where we're in this agrarian, where we grow food and we store up grains and we can stash food and create larger and larger communities and societies. Before that, tribal life is, you have, let's just say 10, 20, 30 tops people in a tribe, nomadic band, traveling, chasing food, chasing the game, eating, living off the land, whether you're eating animals or plants or dead animals, foraging, whatever. You have a chieftain, an alpha, and that's typically a man and a woman, depending on the culture and the time period, because we've gone through patriarchal moments and we've gone through matriarchal moments where there was a woman who was the head of the clan, and there was a man that was the head of the clan. And you got to ask yourself, what would it benefit the chieftain or the chief priestess, or the, however you want to say it, the chiefess, there we go, to steal food from the rest of the tribe, because they know that hurts everyone else. They know that is going to affect the community and everybody around them. My point here is that this government has grown too big to be checked. It is still within our power. It's still within our grasp to hold them accountable, because there will always be more of us than them. But what we have lost touch with is the ability to monitor what they are taking from us through taxes and inflation and printing off money and destroying culture and society. It is a gross misrepresentation of the social contract. And in tribal days of nomadic cultures, they were spiritual. They had a deity, whether it was the sun or the earth or the stars or whatever. There was always a deity, a higher power. And if anything, the deity and the higher power was the community. It was the tribe, because that was the thing that was greater than yourself. And everybody understood that everyone had to do what they could to keep the tribe strong and healthy and together. So what I'm saying is that our psychology, our soul, psych means soul. Our psyche is developed in a tribal setting. We developed communication, whether it was through symbols and hand gestures and paintings and art and crafts, until it became to this advanced, what we would think is advanced because we're in the modern era, this language where I can send concepts straight into your mind and you can grasp them. This is the highest technology that we have, is our human body and our voice. Our language is powerful. It is not to be misused and abused. That's why I do point a finger at the mainstream media, and that is why I'm doing my best to get my voice out there in a consistent manner with a spiritual message tinged with that dirty truth that people are unafraid to admit, that they're too emotionally identified with, to acknowledge that they've been lied to and that they're wrong. They had been gotten. They had been fooled, because it is easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. And that is what I'm not here to do. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just going to, hopefully in a consistent manner, speak my truth, stay focused on spirituality and the problems that we face as a human tribe. Because guess what? This is a human tribe now. We're all interconnected through the internet. We've always been interconnected through the internet, but it wasn't something tangible with a material thing like a device. It wasn't these things. It was the energy that we felt. It was our sixth sense. It was something felt. It was something known, something that you can't really express with words, because once you try to bring that down to this gross level of matter, it gets perverted. You can't. And that's some intrinsic wisdom that we have lost. So I'm here to present to you, as a member of the human family, that our psyche was formed in the belly of a tribe. We are tribal people. So that meant everybody had to keep an eye on everybody and make sure everybody was taking care of everyone else, and that everyone was pulling their own weight. Or if you couldn't pull your own weight, you're being taken care of like the elders. But we don't do that here in the West. We hide from death in America. We have old folks' homes. I've never even seen somebody die. I've only seen a dead person once. We're so desensitized to suffering, fear, violence, because we constantly see it on TV. But when it actually is presented to us as a realistic fact, like the deadliest pandemic to ever hit humankind, and it's just an ongoing rolling narrative that just has continued to play upon our fears and our infantile nature, our undeveloped, our unsophisticated emotions. We are being ruled by our emotions, especially fear, lust, envy, and pride. All these things feed into our ego. You look at the literature that's produced these days, the news, it's sad, it's written at like a 6th grade level, because the comprehension in the emotional level of people is so infantile that you can't say something that will hurt someone's feelings because you don't want to offend them. So we censor ourselves. And it's the saddest thing when we have something valuable to say that the other person could benefit from. And that's really all I want to do is bring something that people could be inspired by, enlightened by, and enlighten myself. And what's up, Dustin? Shout out to Dustin over there on Facebook. Shout out to YouTube, whoever's watching, whoever's gonna watch. Thank you. If you have anything to say it. Comment, like, subscribe, share. Give your opinion. Don't give your opinion. Stay silent. It doesn't matter. I'm just here to say that we are in a human family situation, and we need to resurrect God. We need to resurrect Source. We need to resurrect the higher power. We need to resurrect something greater than ourselves. And if it's something so simple as the human family, then let's do it. But let's not be manipulated into believing that what we're doing, sacrificing our own body, our own bodily autonomy, whether it's being locked down, covering our prana, our air source, or being injected, coerced, be injected with biotechnology. These are very serious offenses to the human family that I'm not going to take lightly. The hardest thing I've had to grasp recently is how to be able to govern myself whilst governing others, but not doing anything at the same time. It's what would be known as Taoism or Confucianism, but this is an Eastern ideology. But the beautiful thing is that you don't really need to subscribe to one ideology or another. It's just good because we have so much information, so much literature from the past that one would be at a disadvantage to ignore all the great things that we have available at our fingertips. Now, I will admit that some people are simpler and they don't need to read or write or study, that they have what's in them already is strong enough and they're already happy and content with where they're at and what's happening in the world, or they don't care what happens in the world. And that's a philosophy in and of itself. And that's what I'm trying to cultivate and manifest, is really my own spiritual growth while spreading it out. So it all starts within, right? That's what we always hear. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto thee. Which my interpretation of that is, obviously, I believe the kingdom of heaven is your mind, because we create everything with the mind. It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And it's also one of the 7 Hermetic laws, which is all is mental, everything, literally. Because you think about it, you have your 5 sense organs: sight, smell, touch, hearing, and then your 5th, if I didn't miss one, is your mental. Because everything, all the senses come in to your mind, and your mind interprets and processes everything. And it gives you your sense of reality, your sense of self. Do I feel good? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Am I bored? Does this taste good? Does this feel good? Do I enjoy that? And then the 6th sense is that, what Dustin was saying, your spiritual sense, where you can see this metaphysical energy, you can sense this metaphysical energy. You're not detached. You're not disconnected from your deity, your source, your universe, your intuition, your higher knowledge is preserved. Now, what I say, shout out to Steven, Facebook, is that we have been slowly, as a society, breeding that spiritual sense, that higher sense of self out of the human family. As the human family grows, I feel like there is a higher chance for corruption and moral perversion that's among us. And you can see that, the way people treat each other, the way I've been treated, the way I've treated people, the way people treat animals, the way I've treated animals, sexual immorality, the way people gorge themselves on Netflix, video games, and junk food, and tobacco, and drugs. What people don't understand is once you start feeding that demon, that beast, that shadow, never get enough. That dark side of ourselves will never be satisfied. And once you get caught in that and you keep trying to scratch that itch, it's just speaking from experience, it'll just get hungrier and hungrier. There's an old adage about the two wolves that live within us. There's a light one and there's a dark one. There's a good one or a bad one. And whichever one you feed, i.e. your soul or your ego, is the one that grows and becomes strong. It's just sad to see that we do live in a day and age where the people think this government is good. I'm not saying it's everything's that it's ever done is bad, but at this point in our history, the government is the American federal government is obviously a cancer because it lives off of our tax dollars and it lives off of stealing other countries' resources, and it thrives by taking our freedom and growing its power. So the only answer to that woe is to grow our own inner power, our own sphere of influence, to become healthier, stronger, wiser, more competent. And there is no time like the present. And it is work. If you think it's easy to climb a mountain, then go ride a roller coaster. I've never been on a roller coaster, but I know it takes a long time to get up that first hump, and then you got to get some momentum going. And from what I understand, temptation will never stop. The work will never stop. Wisdom will never be fully attained. There's a reason why the cross is such a powerful symbol, because you have the line, which is your terrestrial existence. You start here at birth and you move to death. But you have the intersecting line, the vertical line, which is why ascension was such a big deal in 2012. Everyone thought, oh, we're going to become enlightened and the world is going to be peace and love and light, and we're going to have a whole new, well, guess what? A lot of people did take that call and have changed their lives for the better permanently. And they did ascend up the vertical path towards more goodness. And there is darkness down below the vertical. Steven, you just came in late. Anyways, there is two lines. What I'm talking about is the symbol of the cross, and the very bottom of the vertical line is, what that figurative rock bottom is, when you feel like you're at your lowest point, and that's your morality, that's your mindset, that's your attitude. And the top of the vertical line is your highest point. When you feel like you're on top of the world, when you want it, when you're overflowing, when you feel so good that you have to give and you have nothing but love and admiration and encouragement to give to other people. Now, what I'm talking about generally, what the discussion was, is that to start, the U.S. federal government, the American federal government, is got its power not through our voluntary consent, but through force. And that it is like a parasite because it lives off of our taxes and produces no goods or good besides violence and force. And that it's a cancer because it grows and grows and grows and grows. You can't have something like that. It is unnatural. Cancer kills. Parasites are natural. So I guess we can have that argument. But what does the parasite do? It kills its host. The reason why I made this Facebook page, YouTube channel 10 years ago, 11 years ago, something like that, was because I saw a sign which was that the last generation that had this symbol was the generation that fought the Revolutionary War. Whether that's true or not, whether that really happened, whether we really acquired freedom from the crown, or whether we just took another step in a different direction, maybe towards freedom and liberty, or maybe towards more whatever this is. But I noticed that we, the millennials, especially people born from 86 to 94 roughly, that's a very small gap of people. But that's because from a heliocentric model, Pluto has an elliptical orbit, which means that when it's in the sign of Scorpio or the sign of Taurus, it's moving really fast through those signs. And when you get to the other two, Leo and Aquarius, it stays in, Pluto stays in those signs for an extended period of time. So it's not a perfect circle. And that's what the zodiac is. It's a circle of animals. But what's interesting is the symbology, the astrotheological symbology of the cherubim. That's the angels that were in the book of Ezekiel and many others. There was a four-faced angel, and it also, I would say, represents the four winds and the four races. But you have this symbol, and what I recognize is that we do have the potential for transformation, and that we do have the potential for a radical change. I made this page because I wanted to wake people up, and I wanted to create community. I wanted to make a difference in the world, and I have been slacking personally because of my incarceration and my bad choices, and then also being lazy and unmotivated. It's been tough. But, my whole thing has been quality over quantity. Now, you can produce a quality product, a quality content consistently on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or monthly, but you have to stay focused on one thing. And I think what I've found is that perhaps I could stay focused on the fact that this is a corrupted system that's growing unlimitedly, and that the only answer is peaceful, civil disobedience and spiritual growth and influence. And to grow within oneself is the most important thing that we can do, because what we see in this 3D gross reality is not all there is. And I can tell you that. I have witnessed that for myself as a fact. I've felt it. I've seen it in my dreams. I've had episodes where I've had, let's say, visions that were induced through a questionable way, but however, visions nonetheless. Let's see what Steven's saying over here. Texas man in the House of Representatives was calling everyone out and was telling all of us that your vote don't matter. Everything on TV with the amendments is a hoax and pre-planned. We all know, but now it's public. 44. That's when I read that on the stream. So I wouldn't say we all know. I mean, some people do. I guess when you say we all, me and you, Stephen, we know. The thing is that I've been kind of harping over is that we don't have real representation. When the country's government was founded, it was a confederacy, and that we could check the congressmen and the senators and our representatives, and all the states checked and balanced each other. Now we have 350 million or so people in this country, which most people, well, not most, but a lot of people aren't even American anymore. No offense to people who aren't American. It's just the fact of the matter is that immigrants are coming in and they're diluting the American way. We got to stand up for what's ours. I was born here. It doesn't matter what the color of my skin is. I was born here. That's all there is to it. And what's more on that point is that if you expect that small seat of representatives, that small seat of Congress, that small group of blood-sucking, cancerous politicians to have your best interest in mind, you better think again, because you're not living in the same house. Until you're living in the same house, or you know that person by name and you can call them up or walk over to their house and say, hey, what's up with this? What's up with this law that you voted for? What's up with this? Until you can do that, until you can hold that person accountable or at least have a conversation with them, there's no real representation. And there's a lawyer that I've been listening to since last May that points out that the system doesn't scale. That we would need over 100,000 congressmen and senators to have the system scale. Because you got to think about portions and percentages. And he drives home the point. His name's Legal Man. He's on Twitter. He's a real inspiration. You got to think that most people couldn't vote back when. They couldn't even read or write when this country was founded. Most people were illiterate. Most people were just struggling to survive. So the government basically did what it wanted to. And when this government was formed, the Committee of Five, Ben Franklin said, we gave you a republic if you can keep it. Again, I'll quote him again. A republic is like two wolves and a sheep voting for what's dinner. We are in an age of utter confusion, deceit. It's even known as a Kali Yuga in the yogas, in the Vedas, in the Hindi tradition, the Hindus. They have cycles, giant cycles. And just like I was explaining about the cross, you have a high point in society, the golden age, and then you have a low point, the Kali Yuga, the dark age. I feel like we're entering in. And the facts tell us, just look around. That's why it's so important to cultivate our inner light. But, where we're at in this dark age, we could be exiting it, or we could just be entering it. But I tell you, we are in it for sure. Absolutely. And it's up to us, the people that actually want to make a difference, want to change, to preserve the knowledge, the wisdom of the ages, the truth, to write down things, to share skills, to learn new skills, to acquire knowledge and wisdom, to pass it on to your kin, to pass it to your children. Learn a skill. We're already past the age, especially here in America, we're already past the age of consumerism. Yeah, you still have Amazon on demand like that, but guess what? Amazon can only deliver shit. Amazon is not a store that you can walk into 24/7 like Walmart. You can't walk into any store 24/7 that I know of anywhere in America besides a gas station. You can't live off of gas station food. We're past the age of consumerism. We're past that. We're way past that. It's gone. So unless you know how to grow and cook your own food and hunt, sorry, vegans, yes, hunt. Like I said, the nomadic tribal culture that our psyche was based off of did hunt and gather. It's called paleo diet. I think it's the healthiest diet. You eat off of your local food supply, not getting genetically modified Monsanto food from Argentina or Mexico or California or anywhere else. You know what's in that food that you grow in your backyard. You know what fertilizers you put in there. And if you get heirloom organic seeds and you stash the seeds that you got from the best fruit and plant that and grow that and cultivate that and harvest that, you know exactly how that bloodline of that plant, those genetics of that plant are being treated. We've already entered into this bio dystopia. It's transhuman. It's already, people are taking gene therapy. They're being experimented on, and people love it. Some people love that. It's crazy. And one more quick point before I switch back over to spiritual shit. It's not shit, but it's shit. Whatever. It's the shit that we talk about. It's the shit that we entertain. We are in the biotech revolution. People are getting gene therapy injections with nanolipid gels to deliver that gene therapy so it can trick your body's immune system and cells into modifying the way that your body reacts to an infection. People have lost faith or don't know any better, but they are willingly modifying the way that their body will naturally respond to an infection. I can't tell you the outcome of that. I can tell you that me personally, I think I'm pretty healthy. I think that I trust my own immune system. And I think that if anyone were ever to try and forcibly inject me with something, that would be my right to fight. And that's another symbol of Scorpio and the Pluto and Scorpio. The scorpion represents the sting. Pluto represents government. Look at what they're doing. They're trying to take census of people who have and have not, and they are actually talking about going door to door to promote the vaccine now. What do you think that's going to turn into? Why are they coming into your personal space, your personal life? What is privacy? What is freedom? And why do you have a social security number? So they can keep track of you, your taxes, if you've gotten your shot, your jab, whatever they call it. But the other revolution that we're in, because we're in two simultaneous revolutions right now, two, not three, two, the biotech and the infotech revolution. The infotech and biotech revolution has been happening since before we were born. I would say 33 years plus. Once they started genetically modifying things, and once they had the internet and telecommunications, this has been going on for a long time. But it's just starting to speed up. It's hitting the crescendo of the bell curve. Now, my issue has been trying to, again, integrate spirituality and with these podcasts and remain calm and not rant and try to provide some insight into things that people might not understand or might not have any insights about. Now, the interesting thing about me is I have an eclectic view on spirituality, or an eclectic philosophy, if you will. And I do love listening to new philosophers, whether they're dark and grim or whether they're bright and enlightened. And I do like listening to Krishna, Buddha, Jesus. But really, what people don't know about Krishna, Buddha, Jesus is that those are all symbols and that those are all titled. Krishna means the dark one or the black one. Buddha means the awakened or to awaken. And Christos, look at that middle finger. Oops, sorry, I'm on that one. Christos means to anoint, the anointed one. They all have something to offer us. Or if you really want to know the truth, go within, meditate, create something, do some artwork, go outside in nature, be silent, turn your device off for a couple hours before you go to bed. Force yourself to read a book or look into something new, but take your eyes off the blue screen and entertainment. These are blue screen glasses, blue light glasses. But people do need to take some serotonin and dopamine detoxes. I reckon I'm doing my best. I'll be making my dinner now very soon. Start learning how to grow your own food. Start learning how to cook. We're all going to need these skills. Remember, don't argue with stupid people. They'll drag you down to your level and they'll beat you up. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I've been streaming on 2 platforms from 2 separate devices for about an hour now. And I feel like I've said that I've everything that I need to say. Hopefully my next podcast will be more enlightening, if you will, more entertaining, and more useful. Because this was actually just a free form. And I don't know how many people freeform podcast, stream, but I do usually have something to say that I think needs to be said. And it's just that mainly, to surmise, is that the only way to combat a cancerous, totalitarian, medical martial law, pharmacologist, pharmacy, what's the word? Pharmacological fascists. Because it'd be one thing if it was free. And I know they're trying to give the vaccine out free, but guess what? It costs money to take the COVID test. And you think if all these vaccines are going to be free, you're high. And once your immune system is fucked, once your genes are changed, it's probably going to be hard to change them back. You could be able to detox. And my best advice is to stay strong spiritually and mentally. And don't forget to master your 3 minds, master your 3 brains. Because if you don't master them or master yourself, someone else will be master over you. Guaranteed. Well, that's all I have. If you like it, share it, comment, subscribe, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm going to keep doing my thing slowly but surely. So to the human family, God bless. And may you all walk in your own truth and realize there are multiple layers of truth and that will never be fully uncovered. And that the only truth there really is your own inner wisdom. God bless. Oh, I'm trying to touch the computer over here like it's a touch screen over here. There we go. Finish.